Hi, it's Dave here. This is my wife, Kathy.
Hello.
And this is The Cinemile. It's the podcast where we walk home from the movies. Today we are going to watch a movie on Netflix because that's where the movie is. It's called Hitman. It's the new Richard Linklater movie. For anyone who doesn't know who Richard Linklater is, he's a very accomplished and I think great and varied director who has done such things as the Before Sunrise trilogy, the Everybody Wants Some, Dazed and Confused, Boyhood, which we loved, and
Boyhood, which I think is like quite a amazing, iconic, unusual
and ambitious
film. Yeah, I think he's doing something like that again, where he's filming people over time.
Yes, I remember reading that. If only
I knew what it was.
If only we were good at researching or recalling information in our brains.
And in fact, Everybody Wants Some was like maybe our 5th ever episode of the Cinemile with my mum.
That's right, and it was your mum's first appearance. So
First
scroll back there if you want to hear
ago.
Kathy and her mum talk about Everybody Wants Some.
I think it was like episode 5.
So
but anyway, Hitman has arrived. It's the #1 movie on Netflix, starring Glen Powell, who's so hot right now.
He's everywhere
He's
right
everywhere.
now. What's his agent doing? Because I want that agent for the cinema.
And he and Sydney Sweeney were in a rom-com, which I haven't watched yet, which is terrible.
That did money, didn't it?
Big money,
Yeah.
big box office. People are very happy with how that performed.
But they're both so hot right now.
Exactly, and obviously
And literally, they're both very attractive
they're both
people.
very attractive.
Yeah.
And obviously, he was in Top Gun Maverick, which we loved.
He was great in that.
He was
I think
great.
that's the only thing I've ever seen him in. But I see
do
his
as
name
well.
everywhere. I see as soon as you see a movie that's upcoming, it's like starring Glen Powell. Twisters. He's going to be in Twisters this
I'm
this
looking forward
summer.
to that.
Hitman. I can't recall anything else, but I feel like he's just in everything at the moment.
And we've not even watched a trailer for this. We're going in cold, but I do enjoy stuff Hitman-ish stuff, excepting the Michael Fassbender one we watched recently, which we didn't think much of.
Well, I liked it. You really
What was
didn't
it again?
like it. It was called Hitman
Was
with
it?
Michael Fassbender. No, I don't know. I don't remember.
Also on
The
Netflix.
Killer.
It was
called The
also
Killer.
on Netflix.
Yeah.
Scroll back for our review of that.
Yeah, so we will be directly comparing those two movies for no reason,
Yeah.
because that's how you do it
Yeah.
in modern movie
Well, it's the
criticism.
Netflix Hitman cinematic universe.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, do you think Fassbender's going to show up at the end
I
of this
do.
one, and then in his brain, his narration will come on and say, "I'm putting a team together,"
I do think that, yeah.
but then he won't say it.
The entire thing will be done in his inner monologue, as
Yeah.
that whole movie was. Right, we shall be back after we've watched Hitman
See
on
you
Netflix.
shortly.
My name is Gary Johnson, and I'm a fake hitman. I realized not everyone fantasized about the same hitman. Every sting operation was a performance. This is serious.
I am in service business.
And each arrest was like a standing ovation.
Okay, Daniel Day.
I had it down to a science
Sounds lovely.
until things got, well,
Ron.
complicated.
Madison.
We're expecting heavy turbulence, so prepare to brace for impact.
Okay, hi, we're back, and if it's your first time at the Cinemile, well, we won't spoil the movie Hitman until we turn onto Spoiler Street, which is approximately 750 metres away. Is that right?
Yeah, I will signpost in
So
advance.
start counting your steps right now. So, we've seen Hitman, we watched it. Kathy, maybe tell everyone the trailer probably explains it. So
Let's let the trailer play what it's about.
tell everyone what you thought of the movie Hitman.
I thought at the beginning it was very slow, which is often, in fairness, a trait of a Richard Linklater movie. I enjoyed it for a while, and then I thought it was really dragging, and I was like, there's no plot to this film. And then it really picked up, so like, great third act.
Then there's a load of plot.
Loads of plot.
Yeah.
I have to say I really enjoyed it, but like if maybe I'd been at home alone, not watching it with you and not going to record a podcast, I could have turned it off early on.
What if you were watching Home Alone?
Home Alone I would never turn off. But once I kept going, I actually really enjoyed it, and by the end I was laughing a lot and found it quite funny. So it's an unusually paced movie, I'd say, because usually this kind of genre, which is like calm-ish, rom-ish, escapade-ish, would be very punchy at the start and maybe fall apart by the end. So this is kind of the opposite. And I think Glen Powell's really good. As I said, I only know him from Top Gun Maverick, but I thought he was really good in this. I liked the story, and I liked the ending, albeit I would have liked the ending to go a bit further, and I'll talk about that in Spoiler Street. But overall, yeah, I thought it was fun, and I just thought it was like, it's an interesting story. I wasn't actually expecting the story that it was.
Based on a true story.
Or inspired by a true
Inspired by
story,
a
more
true
like
story,
it. I really enjoyed all the characters, and I, by the end, was properly laughing at some of it. And I liked seeing Glen Powell just in like loads of different costumes and like playing loads of different characters, albeit at certain points I thought they're just trying to show off that he can do different characters as opposed to it being like inherently interesting. It was almost like a shopping montage or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what I thought about it. Dave, what do you think?
Well, it's rare that we disagree actually, but I'm going to disagree with you here.
Okay.
I didn't think this movie was very good at all. I thought it was quite bad. However, it did pick up certainly in the third act, and it has a lot of merit to it. There are things that I think are good about it, but I think this is a failure for me overall. I think the movie is attempting a tone which spells comedy. That this is a comedy, we're not taking it too seriously, we're having fun here. I feel like Richard Linklater created a vibe where he's encouraging all the actors to have fun, let loose, be a bit silly. I think the marketing is telling us the same thing. You know, the cover of this on Netflix has that the pale, this is a bright orange background that has been a feature of this is a comedy films for the past 30 years for some reason. Think Steve Carell and the 40-Year-Old Virgin or any. Just let's put the characters in front of a bright coloured background. That spells comedy. And I think all that's fine in theory, but number one, I think Glen Powell is great, and at times I think he really works in this movie, but I don't think he's got the comedy chops here. I think he's miscast. I think you needed.
But he can't be miscast because he co-wrote it, as we saw at the end. So
You
wrote it for himself.
So someone writes a screenplay and then they get cast. You don't think they can be miscast?
If you've written it for yourself, inherently you can't be miscast because it was written for you.
Well, then he's reaching too far. What I'm saying explicitly is Glen Powell does not have the comic chops for what this role required. I would have much preferred a comedic actor to jump in, and as we know, bridging the divide between comedy and drama is much easier for comedy actors to go that way than for dramatic actors to go.
Well, for a while we were
way.
like wondering about the tone, because as I said, it only got funny towards the end. There was loads of periods where we were like, wait, we think we're supposed to be laughing now, but the tone was off. And I also I don't quite agree with you on the Glen Powell thing. I actually think like Richard Linklater is not known for directing comedy.
He's on my next next hit list.
I think with better direction and a better script, Glen Powell would be perfectly funny.
I agree with you. No, I agree. Perhaps I agree with your first part in that I realised watching this movie that Richard Linklater has a limit to his abilities too. I don't think he's a good comic director. The timing is off in this. Timing is everything in comedy.
Timing's really off.
The editing and the timing and the is way off. There are entire scenes. There's one particularly excruciating scene with Glen Powell and his two supporting characters in the police department in a car, and it's supposed to be like, oh, he's such a goofball. He's talking about birds and they're boring,
terrible.
and they are looking at each other like, huh? Are you kidding me?
It was
There's all
shocking.
this. What I don't know, was it the direction they were given or whether they too don't have the comedy chops. But this is such broad comedy that doesn't even hit on a broad level. It's just bad.
And I think when you think about Richard Linklater as a director, what I always think about is the incredible character stuff he does and how he creates like these wonderful kind of moments in time between people and their relationships.
You think of Before Sunrise. I mean, just like that movie just is like looking at two real people in a moment, and you feel like a fly on the wall, like a voyeur, and it is beautiful.
He's just not. I admire him though. I actually really admire
same.
him for stepping out of his comfort zone. But I think it maybe was hampered as well by the fact that they co-wrote the script together, so it's really tricky.
You're saying, for clarity, Richard Linklater and Glen Powell,
wrote
this
the script together, which we only realised after we'd watched it. That makes it very hard because you don't have a third person either in the writing room as the lead actor or as the director going, actually, do you know what, lads, this probably isn't that funny. This scene needs to be punched up or edited differently, or you don't have someone objective, because I agree with you, the comedy didn't land.
But the comedy is this
At the
movie.
beginning.
No, but okay. Look, I'm again not without merit. I did laugh a few times at this movie.
Yeah.
Sometimes this movie is funny, but for me that's a broken clock striking it right twice a day.
No.
I think this movie is just broken.
It just got on. It just moved. The plot kicked in too late. So when the plot finally kind of clicked in at the end, and it got a bit darkly humorous, that was good. When the humor was dark, it was better.
Yes, yeah, I agree. But and I agree with you. By the way, the plot comes in way too late. Far too much setup. Big, real saggy first act. No, bad first act. Saggy second act. The third act kicks into gear, and then it's over.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's kind of wrong. The other big issue I have with this movie is, and why Glen Powell is also miscast, is he is too good looking for this role. And let's come back to our we recently on our Patreon, patreon.com/the Cinema, we're criticising Three Body Problem for having scientists who are too good looking, which we realise and have commented on the fact that that's an absurd statement, that scientists can be attractive and can look like anything, and we have been conditioned by movie media to expect scientists to be dweeby and have glasses or whatever.
No, but he has glasses at the beginning, and then he takes them off
this
when he's hot.
Exactly my point. This movie isn't like, at least Three Body Problems is like, here's a ridiculously attractive woman and she's a scientist, deal with it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's fine. That's just a bad show. That's that show's problem. But here they're like, here is a dweeby college professor who has 2 cats and he's just a loser, and everyone thinks he's a loser, and he
has glasses.
and he's got big rimmed glasses and a bad haircut, and he is every stereotype that you, the audience, think of when you think of a dweeby college professor with no life who's a loser. Oh, but it's Glen Powell. So I'm like, no, that's a disconnect. My brain was like, that man is ridiculously attractive.
With you.
And then later in the movie, it's not a spoiler, but he becomes much more confident.
Well, we've all seen She's All That.
And
like, we know what happens.
Exactly, they do a She's All That.
Yeah.
He just takes off his glasses because obviously he doesn't need to read the fucking chalkboard
No, he got
or
contact lenses.
see his pupils. And then suddenly,
no, I disagree with you.
Suddenly the pupils are like, when did he get hot? And he looks exactly the same.
Disagree with you. I actually think he's a good enough actor that it's not so much about how he looked, but how he held himself at the beginning versus the end. And they talked about this with his different personas. One is very charismatic and confident, and one isn't, and that's what's translating as attractive.
Yeah, but
not how he looks, because of course he looks the same. He's the same person.
Fine, but for me, the way Glen Powell was playing Gary, his actual interesting college professor self, was terrible. I thought he also was leaning into broad, lame, sort of geeky tropes, and it wasn't a good performance. When he became Ron, the mock hitman, I felt like
the guy from Top Gun.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, Glen Powell can do this easily because he's just gorgeous and charismatic and very convincing. So for me, he didn't fit Gary, the actual character he was playing.
Agree to disagree. And also there's more to unpick there psychologically that we'll get into in Spoiler Street, which we should go to now, because I found the psychology of it all quite interesting.
As did I, and I would like to talk about
So let's take a break and then we'll be back. You might hear an ad and we'll be back to discuss spoilers.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Okay, we're back and we are now turning on to Spoiler Street. So spoilers now for the movie Hitman, available on Netflix.
I think the bit I found most interesting, and I do think he pulled it off, but let's not get into the argument again, was when he has this conversation earlier on that was very poorly written and lame with his ex-girlfriend, where they talk about like, can you truly change your own characteristics and like become a different person? Like,
interesting idea.
The kind of like, if you see it, can you be it? Or if you act it, can you be it?
Yeah.
And she names like 5 different things that you can do to change yourself. Like, for example, one was like emotional intelligence or something like that. And we watch him at the beginning of the movie, and as the movie progresses, kind of leaning into this character, kind of his alter ego or his id or whatever he wants to call it when he's going through the college professor stuff, which I liked as a counterbalance. And I felt him turning into the character, and I think he did a really good job when his girlfriend when he ends up unmasking himself and telling her that he's Jerry or whatever.
Gary, yeah.
He fully transitioned back to being unhot again in that moment. And maybe it's only something that someone who is attracted to men could tell, but I was like, oh, he's suddenly gone from being hot to not hot again. And I thought he did that with no visible makeup changes. Like, I love at one point when one of his colleagues was like, it's not Halloween, like, you just have to go in and act.
Yeah, that was funny.
Like, it got increasingly absurd how he was like dressing and appearing, and I enjoyed how they were trying to pick that apart in a court case. Like, there was loads going on as to like probing. Like, he's a really weird guy, like the stuff he's doing to kind of solicit or entrap people to hire the hitman. I love the notion that he posits at the beginning that I've never actually thought about, where he says there's no such thing as a hitman. You can't just
oh my
meet
god,
someone.
that was revelatory to me.
Yeah,
Is that real?
I don't know.
Are there no hitmen? That's blown my mind.
But I think what there probably is, well, we know there is, in organised crime or whatever, you're the boss, you'd have someone who kills people for you. What he's positing is you can't just ever approach a stranger, ask them to kill someone for you for like $2,000 and they'll do it.
There's not somebody who is a contract killer and that's their profession and they're available to the public.
Exactly.
That's
like,
what
of course,
the movie's
they'd be
positing,
available to like very high net worth individuals,
Yeah.
or like crime syndicates or whatever. But like me and you can't just be like, call someone and say I'll pay you €2,000 to kill someone. Like his point is like that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fascinating. I think for me where the film was like rubbing me up the wrong way was I really liked the idea of like the central relationship between him and the girl and all that stuff, and we knew she was up to something that we couldn't quite figure it out. I think where we both cringed was their kind of sex
Their banter.
scenes and their banter because
No, their sex scenes are fine because they're two ridiculously attractive people.
No, not that. It's the pilot
when they're
thing.
talking.
When she was dressed up as like an
God,
air hostess
stop.
and all that stuff. But then I actually thought, in fairness to the film, that makes sense though, because they're actually both performing for each other. Because she's trying to use his skills to figure out how she can kill her ex-husband, and he's performing and pretending to be a different person, so he's always on. So actually, the more I thought about it, it made sense as well. I thought they had good chemistry. Where I wanted the film to go further is the point in time when he just commits. He's covered. I love it. As soon as she's actually killed the husband, that's when the movie gets really good.
Yes.
He's covering her up.
Agreed.
The other cop whose job he's taken is figuring it out, and then it gets very dark, and they leave that guy dying in front of them.
But even all the bit before that, where I am leaning in. This is a great conflict where he has been compromised.
Yeah.
His cop buddy knows he's implicated.
That was so good.
And he's manipulating him to force him to go in and confront the woman in character as Ron when he's just revealed
That
he's
was
not
so
Gary.
fun.
So all that's when I woke up and I was like, this movie just came alive.
And that guy
20
was
minutes
so
from the
good,
end.
whoever that actor was playing the other
He
cop.
was fantastic, yeah.
So I love all that stuff, but then when they actually had sex while they were killing him, I thought, oh, now the film's going to get super dark and turn like way off what we were expecting. And I thought they were going to do the stuff that he said at the beginning of the film, where he was going
Throwing
to
fingers
cut
out
all
the
their fingers
window,
off,
yeah.
throwing out every 5 miles, blow the head up with a stick of dynamite, drop the body. I thought we were then going to see him do that, and I thought that would have been such a good sinister ending. But I feel like the film tried to have its cake and eat it too, because they showed us killing him, but then they never showed the grubbiness of them lifting the body out and all the rest of it, albeit he explained what he was going to do, which was to leave him in his car. But like, I just thought the film, there was a darker ending in there that would have been a more interesting ending.
The actual ending, the coda we got at the end was, I thought, dreadful. I didn't believe them as a family unit. I wasn't convinced. Basically, my suspension of disbelief was broken from the off, and I was never able to get it back again because I just didn't buy any of these actors as any of these people.
I bought them. There was a little bit right towards the last scene where they're like a happy family in their amazing house because she's gotten all the life insurance money, which was like, she's in a room with somebody and that person says, oh, I'm so glad you were able to step in because so and so just completely disappeared on a trip in Aspen. And it kind of cuts to the wife and she's like, just lingers on her for a minute, and I think we were supposed to believe, oh, did she kill that person to conveniently get her out of the way? But it was so brief that I don't know if that's what they meant, and I just wished it had been a bit lent into its own darkness a bit more.
I think they were kind of hinting at it, but they're just dipping their toe in. They don't want to they don't want to go full on. But yeah, I don't know what more to say. I think that's kind of it. I thought their meet cute was so
the meet cute was cringe,
dreadful.
but
when
I still
he
enjoyed
starts
it.
like like doing this. They do this whole bit about a cat, and it was just no.
Yeah, the banter. Anytime there was quote unquote banter, whether it was that meet cute, whether it was the car scene you're talking about, that was shocking, and that's where they probably needed, in fairness to them, a comedy writer to come in and help them write those scenes. Yeah. But overall, like, I did enjoy it, but like, if you hadn't told me it was Richard Linklater, I'd have never known.
But sorry, the movie's just broken from the. I agree. By the way, this has no Richard Linklater fingerprints over it. But then to your point earlier, he doesn't really have fingerprints because he's a guy that's always pushing himself outside of his comfort zone,
so
which I admire,
yeah.
and I really admire him for taking this on.
I love that they wrote it together as well. I think that's cool.
And by the way, I know I'm dumping on this movie, and I think it is a failure, but it is not based on anything. It is a brand new property. It's inspired by
someone who seems to be a friend of his.
You know what I mean. It's not IP.
Exactly.
It's an interesting filmmaker. It's a good good actors. I think everyone is good in this.
Yeah.
They're not good in this. They're good. They're good at acting aside of this. But I just feel so. I would much rather this as an experimental failure rather than just Top Gun 3 starring Glen Powell.
But I also want to see Top Gun 3 though.
Actually, a bad example because I do want to see it.
You do want to see it.
Give me that.
What's fascinating to me about this movie is it's like the inverse of most problematic arcs. In that, like, the first act is way too long and boring, and then the third act's brilliant.
Yeah.
Usually these things all start out brilliantly, and by the end you're like, oh geez, they should have cut 20 minutes off the end. I'm like, they should have cut 20 minutes off the beginning.
But just the vibe is off. And at the very beginning, the thing that just, the instant they lost me was when they're in the police van, and they're like, oh, the normal guy can't go in because, you know, he beat up a lot of teenagers and he's an awful guy, you know, we'll figure that out later. So you're going to have to go in. Because, and this is a direct line from the movie that I wrote down. Remember, yeah, he's not a cop, but that seems to have happened in real life. So they're like, now, to be a good mock hitman, you need to have a perfectly forgettable face. And I was like, as if you've just lost me, movie.
But I disagree.
Nobody is looking at that man and saying,
I disagree though. I think he's completely forgettable. Like, I didn't remember what he looked like.
He's not. He's also huge.
But
he's a huge guy.
I'm just telling you, I didn't remember what he looked
built.
like. I've seen Top Gun Maverick and I didn't remember what he looked like. So we just have to agree to disagree on Glen Powell's looks.
If you saw Glen Powell in real life anywhere, the whole restaurant would be staring at him.
Well, at one point his teeth were so white I was like, it's ridiculous. And then they showed us him actually darkening his own teeth because I was like, the teeth are what's memorable. Because like a Hollywood movie star's teeth versus a normal person's teeth are very different things.
I know. I wish that they didn't all have the same teeth now in movies because it's stupid. You look at old movies and even back to the 90s and people had varying looks of teeth like that look like humans.
Anyway, we need to wrap up. Thank you for listening. Let us know what you thought of it. Head over to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Letterboxd, where we're at The Cinemile, or come over to patreon.com/The Cinemile, where every month we do a ton of TV reviews. We do a monthly retro review, and actually we're just about to start again House of the Dragon.
Yeah, so we'll be doing weekly House of the
review.
Dragon episodes. We'll be talking about The Acolyte, the new Disney Plus Star Wars thing, and we've just done an episode on Unforgiven, which we had never seen before.
Yeah.
So that is
Voted
all
for
up there now.
By our patrons.
Patreon.com/The Cinema.
Bye.
Bye.
We'll see.
Hold up, please don't let me be misunderstood.